Welcome to today's edition of Daytime Dialogues. It's my great pleasure to welcome a dear friend, Rabbi Steve Burg, to today's episode. Rabbi Burg is the international director, the global director, actually, of Aish Global. He is a person who has changed lives through the ability to inspire people. First as at NCSY, where he was for 22 years, serving also ultimately as the international director of NCSY and also the managing director of the OU. Then as the East Coast director of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in New York, where he managed the Museum of Tolerance and its development in New York. And now at Aish Global, an organization that has done such amazing things in the realm of kiruv, of bringing people closer to Judaism in a way that, in fact, they've set a goal of bringing 3 million people closer to Judaism. Rabbi Burg, thank you so very much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you.
And for some of you who may have been watching, we'd had some technical difficulties. We have started this over again, and I hope that everyone will be able to enjoy this recording as well. And I'm coming clean on it because we're right before Rosh Hashanah. So, Rabbi Burg, let me start with the question that I really am having difficulty understanding: how it's possible to reach so many Jews, people who are unaffiliated. No one else seems to be able to do it, and Aish has found that magic formula. What is it?
I think it's really the greatness of Rabbi Weinberg, who was the founder of Ancient Torah 45 years ago. And when the .com started, when the internet started, when everyone was trying to figure out what's going on, what is it? Is it good? Is it bad? Renault said, okay, this is great. We just found a way to reach every Jew in the world. And Aish.com started and been phenomenally successful for about 20 years. Tremendous content. And now everyone's on social media, every single Jew in the world on social media. And we're shifting there to really, go to our brothers and sisters who have no connection to their heritage and just really make it available to them from on their phone. I mean, literally.
And the number of people you reach on a monthly basis is how many?
So we, on the internet, we do about 1 million a month that come. And honestly, that's your Jews, non-Jews. It's a big grouping of people. That happens a lot of unique visitors. And now we're shifting on to social media, where we're all amassing millions of people. And frankly, our numbers on social media are starting to even get much, much higher than the Aish.com numbers.
So social media, you mean TikTok?
Yeah, we basically made a strategic decision about a year and a half ago websites are kind of passe. I think 81% of the folks come to Aish.com are 39 older, which is great for a certain demographic. But if we want to reach young Jews that we're increasingly losing to the Jewish people and increasingly losing to the support of Israel, we needed to shift off to social media. And the truth is, for the demographic of, let's say, 18 to 24. You have to be on TikTok or Instagram. Those are really the only two venues that are working for them. But not only do you have to be on those venues, but it also means your message got to be a lot shorter than it would be otherwise and much more targeted. And you got those few moments to kind of pique someone's interest and get them to say, hey, I'd like to see some more of this stuff.
So you were the people at Aish who used to have the discovery seminars that were 2-3 days long.
Yeah, no, seminars started as like long weekends. And then they went down to a day and then a few hours. And, now we're down to a few seconds. The way people learn and study has changed. I mean, you're an educator, you've been in education, and I'm sure you've seen it, coming up through the years. People just, this is why I kind of try to say, that, Jewish wisdom doesn't change, but the delivery mechanism does, and how you get the message to people changes. And so therefore, we could complain all day long about the short attention span people have, or just say, look, that's just the way people are doing it. They're just going to scroll down their phone, and we just got to be much better at what we do, because we have the substance, but it's almost like a marketing aspect to try and get people's attention.
Now, people are connected to Judaism. People who aren't connected to Judaism are connecting because of the emotion, because of wanting to be connected to something. How do you take them the next step?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons people connect. Sometimes it's life cycle. Someone might be getting married, someone has in a family. We get a lot of traction on, what happens after death, people just all of a sudden, there's something in their life, they start to wander into that. There's a lot of things that kind of, send them searching or thinking. And so our goal is basically to say, look, you want to live a good life, you want to love and be loved, you want to, grow leadership, all these different pieces. You need to know that Judaism, we were the first on the scene, and we've got a lot to say about it. And so if you catch your attention and say, this is going to make you a better husband, father, wife, mother, person, friend, human, that you could really gain from that, then people will, I think, go down that road.
Yeah, but how do you get them from, okay, you'll be a better person, to you're going to keep Shabbat? The level of commitment, isn't it all personal as opposed to viral?
Totally. And look, I the full disclosure here, we have a 10-year goal. H Vision 2030 is to get 3 million people to study Jewish wisdom. Our goal is not for people to become Shomer Shabbat. I love Shabbat. I want everyone to love Shabbat. I want everyone to get there. But that's not our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is to basically connect people to the Almighty, and to do that through Jewish wisdom, and then for them to find their way into communities. But yeah, I mean, it is a big jump for that. The one thing I will say, though, is that I think we know Shabbat in today's day and age, there are families that are just like totally passing each other by. People aren't getting, everyone's sitting around a table, family sitting, everyone's got a phone in front of their face and stuff. And so I think that slowly there are people that are beginning to understand the benefits of Shabbat. And they have these technology fasts where you put your technology away for a couple hours or 24 hours. And, that's what we do. So it's ironic how I think the world is needing that break and seeing that this might be to their advantage.
And in terms of the support, people, do you have famous stars who come to Aish and say, hey, we want to make this work?
Yeah, look, people are people. I always say that, there's a reason People Magazine or Us Magazine do so well. Or if I can switch over, the reason Mishpacha Magazine always has people on the front cover. People like to read stories about people. They like to know about people. They like to know things behind the scenes. We get a lot of famous people coming through Aish, really interesting people, and so, if people, when they see that, like someone, that's one of our big jumps, someone famous came by Aish or hung out with us and stuff, they're like, whoa, wow, if they like it, maybe I'll like it, so it's definitely a piece of marketing. And, for us, we want to give spirituality and wisdom to whoever comes through, famous or not. But we do tend to get, because of our location, you see the building right behind me, we have that view of the Western Wall at Temple Mount. We tend to get a lot of folks in that category.
It is one of the best views you're going to get. There's only a couple of places to get something similar. Is there a favorite story of somebody who you would never expect visiting Aish, who visited, who's well known, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting, for me, it is a personal moment. I don't know if anyone else will find this is interesting, but when Conan O'Brien came, was interesting to me. So, he's not Jewish, absolutely terrific guy. He was doing a special on Israel. He came to the room, we were schmoozing, and I got to spend some time with him. And I said, by the way, you gave a speech, a commencement speech in Dartmouth, which is, it's online. You can watch. It's a pretty amazing speech. 3/4 is really funny, and then the last quarter he gets serious because he talks about his life and stuff. And I told him that I quote him all the time. He says in there, because he had some difficulties with his job, when Jay Leno came back, with the whole back and forth, and he said, to the graduates, he said, they say whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. What they neglect to tell you is it still almost kills you. And I just told him, I was like, I found that to be such a deep statement that, everyone's like, oh no, you'll get stronger. And, if something, you go through the tough times and right, it's true, but the people still experience pain. And you have to be empathetic to that. And he was like, really, first I think he was caught off guard. The rabbi in Jerusalem was telling me to quote him, but I think he was pretty moved by that. That was that was a great moment.
And from within the Jewish community, is there someone who surprised you who came visiting?
Oh yeah, I mean, there was a guy, Jeremy Piven, who is very famous on a lot of different shows and stuff. And we did a bar mitzvah for him with like Talis and Phil on the roof. And we did like a whole ceremony for him, and it was very moving. He had never had a bar mitzvah. He had never really done anything. And he came with a whole group of sports folks and actors. And we set up, we had actually, there were a bunch of entities like Call Boys, my son among them, that were in the building. They came and joined the Minyan, and they put Talspilin on and said Shema. And it was very moving. Here's a guy that is very famous in so many things, and just never had that Jewish experience. It just came there and it was felt very, very connected to the place.
And when Rav Noach Weinberg started Eish HaTorah, it was a very different organization than it is today. He was one of the founders of the whole Kiruv movement, a very driven person. There's a wonderful biography that's out there that you had a hand in producing, I know. But when he did it versus what happens today, where do you think there are changes to Eish?
Yeah, when he came, first of all, when he started this whole movement, people thought he was crazy. In the book, it talks about, they called him Noach the Meshugana, because he thought you could take someone that didn't know Aleph Beis and teach them Torah. And back in the 70s, they thought that was crazy. So he was an absolute pioneer. But also the 70s, you have to remember, the 70s people were searching. They call them, Rabbi would call them truth seekers. People were traveling the world. People were joining cults and ashrams and all these different places. And there were all these just interesting times, the 60s leading into the 70s. And so you had a lot of backpackers showing up at the Western Wall. They were just traveling the world, and someone said, hey, why don't you stop in Israel while you're going to India or these other places? And then, they would, Mayor Schuster, or one of the folks in Dakota, would say, hey, you'd like to hear a class from a rabbi. And they would come up and they would really appreciate the truth because they were traveling the world seeking the truth. There are a lot of amazing stories like that. And so I think when Rav Noach built Eish, it was in a place where there's this like intellectual seeking that was going on in the world. And it's transformed over the years where there's a lot less of that, where people are still in need of it. They're still in need of love and spirituality and ways to make their life, more impactful, but they're not actively seeking it. And they don't always kind of realize it as much as in the 70s and the 80s.
Would it be fair to say that it goes from the 70s and 80s an intellectual seeking to now a spiritual or just a more visceral kind of connection?
Yeah, I think so. Look, if you go to the internet and, one of the most, searched terms is love. People they feel like people that have a lack of love, or they want to be loved, they want to love, And so I think people that struggle, they can't articulate as much. Like in the old days, people would just take, like I said, they would take off time, they would travel the world, just trying to figure out how to kind of fill that meaning. Today, there's almost like this rat race where people need to like get out and make money and do, like, there's just, they still have the same lacking. They're not giving it the time or attention that it was once given. And so therefore, when people show up and they realize, wow, I'm part of this people and there are people that love me. But I'll just tell you something very powerful I find for Jews is the Israeli army. Is the fact that there's an 18, 19, 20-year-old that is ready to give their life for your life just because you're Jewish. That kind of brotherhood and sisterhood, that kind of family, that transcends almost anything. And people aren't as aware that they're like a part of that family.
And so the differences in Eish between when Rav Noach was doing it and today is not just a difference of focus, though, but also operationally, Eish is different. How's that?
I think the world's different. Also, I'll give you an example. In the yeshiva, we have a post-high school non-Orthodox program that we hadn't had years ago. And I think the world's changed where you have a lot of, even Orthodox Jews that are kind of searching for some of the things that we have. And we pivoted. So even though we reach out to people with no background, we've even kind of worked with people that do have a background that are seeking out spirituality. And I think that's one of the things that people within Orthodox Judaism sometimes wrestle with. Although they may know there's a God and they may be socially Orthodox, it's how do I experience spirituality? And, Eish, Rav Noach, to his credit, he was totally focused on the Almighty. That was his word, was the Almighty. He was like that. He literally, that was like his term. If you heard the word Almighty, you knew it was him. Not someone talking about Hashem or the other terms. And, he basically said it's all going to start with the Almighty. And this is how we explain it, whether it be discovery, et cetera. We explain the Almighty to people and help them create a connection. And we're finding that everyone needs that kind of basics we do. And so I think that, we've gone into those kind of areas where we can help out all Jews, whether they be Orthodox or non-Orthodox, et cetera.
It's now I guess one of the other questions I have often about Kiruv in general, and I think it came through in a recent study, that the number of people were successful into being Mekarev, and maybe that's a question of definition of what that means, versus the number of people who we lose. That we're losing 2 or 3 times the number of people who we're bringing in. And if I have the definition of bringing in, maybe it's that your definition is broader. Bringing in is they have some exposure, and these surveys may be looking at bringing into orthodoxy. At times, do you wonder if it should be outreach or inreach?
Well, the easy answer is you need both. I mean, everyone, we it's kind of like, well, I've got 6 kids, so which kids do you love more? Not, my son once said to me, he said, he was a little kid at the time, and he said, Dad, in China, you're only allowed to have 1 kid. I was like, yeah. He said, so which one of us would you choose? So we don't choose kids. We love all of our kids, and all of our kids have different needs, and we want all of our kids to succeed. And I think that's the inreach outreach that we have to put effort towards everything, but I have to tell you, I was once, this will sound like a joke, and it's not. I was on a plane on my way. There was an outreach conference in Baltimore. They used to do the AJOB conference, and I was sitting between a Mormon and a secular Jew, right? And I hate the middle seat. I'm like, I've never said, but it just happened. I don't know what was going on. I was fine, and I'm in the middle of these, and the secular Jews telling about the struggles of his kids intermarrying, and the Mormon, like, I had gone to the bathroom, he's reading my speech for AJOB, he starts talking to me about their outreach, and he said to me, it's very interesting. I was working for NCSY at the time. So he asked me, so I started to talk about JSU, which is something that I had started for public school outreach, He's like, well, what about the kids that are connected? I'm like, oh yeah, we also work with day school kids, And he said to me, and this is always kind of sat in my brain. He said, oh, that's good, because otherwise you're bailing water out of a boat with the hole in the bottom, right? And I just like, wow, that just encapsulated, we've got to patch the hole and to hell the water. And we've got to do it all, because these are all of our brothers and sisters and our children and our family. And, we have to give attention everywhere, because every single Jew, can make the difference. Moshe Rabbeinu grew up in an assimilated, secular, anti-Semitic household. Can you imagine if he wouldn't have made his way back to the Jewish people? Right. So one Jew could change the world.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge for Kiruv? Not the financial, not being able to do, but what's stopping people?
I think today it's to me, half the battle is just finding them and exposing them. I have yet to find a Jew come to a Friday night Shabbat dinner that didn't think it was absolutely beautiful and moving. Literally. I mean, it doesn't matter how far there. Someone comes sit down with the family and sees the way everyone conducts themselves and sees the beauty. They're like, this is wonderful, Or if they go to Israel and they go to the Kotel, there's this, you asked before about stories. So Yuli Edelstein got married. He was widowed. He married a woman from Russia who had her wedding at the H Center. And we asked her, she wasn't religious. Like, what was it? Why'd you want to get married there? And she said, I came home from Russia. I was totally secular. I had no connection to Judaism, no connection to God. She said, I walked to the Western Wall. I started bawling. I don't even know. My heart was, she's like, I said, when I get married, I want to get married here. So, when people show up to Israel, they're visibly moved. And when people encounter the rituals, they're visibly moved. To me, it's how do we just get people to have those experiences? And again, once you have experiences, then you have to help them in terms of intellectual studying and learning and growing, et cetera. But just getting them in that first door, people are terrified to walk into a synagogue and temple. I don't know if people know this. This is, I once had these 2 young women in NCSY, and they would not walk into a synagogue. I don't know if they thought we were doing like human sacrifices there. Like, they literally would not walk in. They were terrified. So I told them, you know what? We're going to go mincha on Shabbos, right? There's no one in the women's section. There's not even so many men. You'll be okay. So we went. It was at the Young Israel Oak Park in Detroit. So they go in there. They find the women's section. I said, don't worry, no one's going to know you're here. And then Rabbi Stephen Weil was the rabbi of the shul at the time. I walked up to Rabbi Weil and said, do me a favor. Before landing, could you welcome those 2 girls to the shul? So he's like, we'd like to welcome, and they like turned bright red. But you know what? They felt so good. And after that, they started going to synagogue. But walking in that first time was terrifying. And I think that we forget this. Rick Warren, who's a pastor in a mega church, that he says, I heard this years ago, and I was so taken by it. He says that once a week, he parks in the furthest parking spot from his church. and he tries to imagine what it's like walking in the first time, right? Do they get greeted? The signs that, in synagogues, we're not, we think that we're really warm and welcome and open. We have a nice joint, but it's hard for people to walk in that door, and we have to do more to get them in.
No, we don't know how to welcome people, not just by not saying hello, but everything's in Hebrew. I remember people telling me, Rabbi, we're not a non-Orthodox shul. You don't have to announce pages. And I explained to them, I'm not announcing pages for you. There's a person who sits a few rows in front of me, and if I don't announce the page, he doesn't know where we're at because he doesn't read Hebrew, but he comes to shul every week. And not everyone gets it. It's interesting.
Not at all. I when I used to travel to yeshivas and seminaries in Israel to recruit advisors around the I used to talk about that when I was a kid, there was a bolus of skull caps, right, of yarmulkes for people, and the doilies for women. And people come in, they could take one. I said a lot of synagogues today, I've had this. You walk in with someone that doesn't have a yarmulke, no one knows where a yarmulke is for the person to wear. So I'll never forget, a young woman in one of the seminaries said to me, she's like, yeah, but Rabbi, no one not religious walks into our synagogues. I said, when you build a building, there are rules that you have to make sure it's handicapped accessible. Now, someone may never come in a wheelchair, but you want to know that if they come in, they can feel comfortable. It's the same type of thing. We have to make sure that we can make people feel comfortable, and we're just not awesome at that.
What would you think are the steps? You were with us in Kins this past Shabbat. What do we have to do better?
So I don't want to talk about Kins in general.
Okay, you can talk about every show in the world. But
yeah, I've often felt that, like, on every synagogue board, there should be a vice president of outreach. And I've said to the synagogue, the shul boards all the time, I was like, look, if you want to grow, the greatest thing for growth are people who are not religious. They could bring money to this shul, dues, they could build, they could all kinds of great things. There's a shul in LA, I'm trying to remember which one it was. But at the end of davening, a guy gets up and says, if anyone doesn't have a place to go for Shabbat lunch, please come over. Now, on the average Shabbos, I don't think anyone walks up to him, but it's like the statement. It's the statement that if there's someone here that doesn't have a place to go, and I think it's working on all those things. And I once walked into the Maury Weiss to see Maury Weiss at American Greetings, right? And I walk up to the front desk, and the first person you see there is a woman, and it's got a nameplate like in these corporate offices, the vice president of smiles, right? Their job is to make you feel good when you walk in. And I was like, that is brilliant. This is brilliant. The nicest woman is sitting there just to make you feel good when you walk in. So I think it's sitting down and saying, how can we do that? What are the areas we could even, put up flyers or send out, social media things, or come up with creative programming, that's something that would speak to people that's a little bit different. We have really smart Jews in our places, so we come up with great creative ideas.
Has Aish ever thought about partnering with shuls?
Every day. I think about it every day. To me, my ultimate goal, and now I'm getting a little ahead of myself, is once we can attract the traffic we'd like to see online, I would like to partner, I believe, with day schools and synagogues to say, okay, you could be, a partner with us. Number one is do some more stuff that'll be great for your synagogue, but also you could be a place that we could try to send people to. That's ultimately, if you ask me what the ultimate vision is, it's that piece of that vision.
And by partnering with shuls, do you think that will complete the picture? In other words, you're bringing them in for the first content. You're making them feel good about being Jewish. Is that how you get them invited? Should the goal be to get them Shomer Shabbos? Or should the next generation?
What's the phrase? It takes a village, to raise a child. It takes a village, meaning, there's different things that are going to speak to different people. When I was at NCSY, I would take young people, I would take them to a bookstore, and I would say, okay, you got $100, pick out which books you like. Why? Because some of them were intellectual, some of them were spirit. Like, people like different things. And we were at your synagogue, and Saturday night you had a kumsitz, right? A kumsitz speaks to certain people. A Gemara shir speaks to other people. A businessman once told me that the reason Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors. People like different flavor ice cream. So I think that, synagogue is absolutely key. It's key to be warm, welcoming, and opening. But day schools are key, and there could be all kinds of different ways to do this. To open up the portals. The bottom line is we have to have multiple portals, and they have to be warm and welcoming. And right now there's a kind of like a narrow lane to kind of walk in. And even the stuff on social media. I mean, no offense to the Jewish community, but it's a little bit preaching to the choir. I talked to a lot of organizations. They're on Twitter, and it's just their people, and they're just, you're just communicating your people. We did an abortion panel, right? And we got some flack for this. We did an abortion panel after Roe versus Wade, and one of the panelists was pro-abortion. And people said, "How could you have it?" I'm like, well, what are we gonna do? You got 3 people agree with themselves, with each other? I mean, we like to do that a lot in the Jewish community. We all agree with each other. Oh, it's Israel, we gotta kind of broaden if we want to have conversations with people.
And Israel, is Israel the connection for most people, or some people?
Unfortunately, less and less for young people. They do not feel a connection to Israel. If they get to Israel or it gets put on the radar, it could get there. But compared to generations in the past, it's all changed. Generations in the past, you had the 6-Day War. We're like, we won, we defended ourselves. Creation of State Israel 48, and today you just have this narrative that's being, the Palestinians are, and the folks that help them are 1,000 times better on social media than we are. We're losing that battle. And so young people are basically, kind of seeing this story out there and just, a Jew, I believe a Jew in their DNA wants to lead. And if they're not going to lead for the Jews, they're going to go some other place. And unfortunately, a lot of the folks leading the anti-Israel movements are Jewish kids that we haven't made the case to. So it's we got to fix it.
So I don't want to end on a down note. How about what is the biggest surprise and the greatest success walking into this Yontif that you've had?
The biggest surprise and success is that, number one, is our growth in social media. It's been just huge. I'm blown away. We're way ahead of where I thought we would have been. But more importantly, we're finding out and that you can give substance on TikTok and Instagram. You can give real substance there, which I personally didn't think. I thought we'd have to just get people's attention and then bring them someplace else. But you can really give Torah wisdom, Jewish wisdom, in those venues, and that's been very, very, very exciting.
And on that note, Rabbi Burg, I want to wish you a k'tiva v'chatima tova. I thank you for your leadership and your friendship. But
thank you so much.
Importantly, continue to bring people back to us, because we need people like you to achieve that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.